Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Hare Krishna, children and young adults, please welcome and thank you so much for joining. So today we are going to look at the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita in this Bhakti Gyan course. Just a quick summary of what we've done so far. The 4 chapters, very quick summary. First chapter, Krishna's main man, Arjun, suddenly didn't want to fight because of weakness of heart. He asked Krishna for help in the 2nd chapter. And Krishna gives him advice immediately about his real identity as spirit soul. First instruction of the Bhagavad Gita. Then he also describes what his duties are. And there's 2 types of duties. There's the spiritual duties and the material duties. And then Krishna also describes what is the nature of a person who does his duties. How does he behave? How does he walk? How does he talk? And then the 3rd chapter describes karma yoga. Karma yoga is where one does our duty in different ways. One can do our duty with attachment to the fruits or without attachment to the fruit. That's karma yoga, without attachment to the fruits. In that way, we can set an example to the world and avoid sinful activities. And the 4th chapter, last week, what we did was talked about how Divya Gyan, transcendental knowledge, is passed down. Krishna explains that, and he explains his own mission on earth. Also, we talked about the different types of karma, if you remember. So there's karma, akarma, vikarma, like that. So hopefully we might just test you on some of that when we do the quiz today. And also, Krishna described the importance of acquiring knowledge. Now, you're so young, every one of you. Always don't waste your time, okay? Always try to improve your knowledge, and especially if you can improve your knowledge about spirituality, that will always do you great good. Okay, so today we're going to talk about 5th chapter, which is entitled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. So 3rd chapter was also called Karma Yoga, but this is a little bit different. This is Karma Yoga, but in relation to God consciousness, okay? Because one can do karma yoga, one can do it, their duty without attachment, but not be attached to God. So 5th chapter describes the attachment process with Krishna. Okay, so let's have a look at this chapter. Now, is Sanjana has not joined us yet. She might be having internet issues, huh? Okay. Arjun, he wanted further clarification because, good, she's just joining. He was confused by Krishna's instructions of renunciation. So the Lord guides him how to turn work into worship. Some people say work is worship, but actually that's not the case. But we can turn the work into worship. How? Outwardly performing all actions, but inwardly we're renouncing the results of those actions. We're not attached to them. Yes, I will work very hard to do my studies, but if I don't get A+, whatever it is nowadays, I'm not going to worry, but I will do my very best. The wise, purified by the fire of transcendental, attains peace. That way you get peace. You get detachment, forbearance. What is forbearance? You can tolerate anything. And vision, spiritual vision, and happiness as well. How can we get there? Every journey starts with a step. And in this chapter, Krishna explains how to take steps in the right direction. There are steps leading to further entanglement in worldly complexity. So we can get ourselves more and more deeply entangled in this world, which means more and more engrossed in this world. But there are also steps leading to a life of liberation, freedom, tranquility. So there are 4 themes in this chapter. One is the Lord describes how we can do karma yoga without attachment, where we surrender our results to Krishna, to God. And the result of such actions is that we will realize that we are not the doers. We are actually, and that is a very interesting point, which we will come to shortly. And when we take shelter of the Lord, we can see everybody with equal vision. We won't discriminate. Very important point. And we also understand the position of the Lord, that it leads us to the peace formula. So the peace formula is given in this chapter. So I'd like to ask Sanjana, please take over. Oh, hang on. Sorry, Sanjana. Let me make you a co-host. Okay.
Okay, yeah. Can you hear me?
Very good.
Okay, brilliant. So really exciting chapter for us to do today, and really useful as we all go back to school as well, and we might be facing things where we're working, acting, etc. So let's start with some reading. Does anyone want to read this first slide? Okay, brilliant. We start with Ria.
Oh, we need to unmute. You can unmute yourself, Ria.
Arjun said, "Oh Krishna, first of all, you asked me to renounce work, and then again you recommed work with devotion. Now will you kindly tell me definitely which of these 2 is more beneficial?" Text 2. The personality of Godhead replied, "The direction of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation, but the two work in devotional service is better than renouncing of work." Text 3. One who neither hates or desires the fruits of his activities is known to be always renounced. Such a person, free from all disqualities, dualities, easily overcomes material bond and is completely liberated. Oh my mighty armed Arjun. Text 4. If only the ignorant speak of devotional service, karma yoga, as being different from the I can't say it. Analogy. Study of material world, Sankhya. Those who are actually learned to say that he who applies himself well done to one of the paths achieves the result of both.
Okay, good. Should be a little older, okay, when you're reading, because some of these words are a little tricky. So.
Yeah, I think the age wasn't there, but it was still really well read.
Yes, still very well read, yes.
Okay, who wants to read the next slide? Manha? You have your hand up?
You can unmute now.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, good.
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay. Text 5. One who knows that the position reached by means of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service to be on the same level, sees things as they are. X6. Merely renouncing all activities, yet not engaging in the devotional service of the Lord, cannot make one happy, but a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay.
Mhm.
Text 7. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. Text 8 to 9. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, all is within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuate,
Evacuating.
evacuating, receiving or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them.
Excellent.
Great. And one more reader for the final 3 verses. Let's see who has their hands up. Barry, did you want to read these?
You can unmute.
Yes, sure, Mataji. Text 10. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful reaction, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. The yogis, abandoning attachment, act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with the senses, only for the purpose of purification. The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me, whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you all to our readers. Really nicely read, and always good to go first as well. So it can be daunting, but everyone's got right into it. So we'll start with a summary of verses 1 to 12. And we see here that Arjuna's still kind of seeing a little bit of confusion here, mainly on our behalf, because this is actually, even though it's something quite simple to understand, I think it's also in a way quite complex because it's more of a spiritual understanding that we come to. So it's quite different to a lot of the things that we see in our day-to-day. So sometimes it can be quite difficult for us to understand how both working and renouncing material things can be in the same path. You know, how can we be doing those things at the same time? How can I work in this material world and at the same time say that I've renounced this material world? It's a little bit of a tough concept for us to understand. So that's why we get this chapter 5, which elaborates on some of the things that we were looking at in chapter 3, about how we can bring work and renunciation together. So Krishna starts elaborating to this question of how do we bring these things together in these verses 1 to 12. And we learn a few things here, quite key. So we learn that an individual who works in the spiritual consciousness, we automatically have become renounced from the material world. So what does that mean, spiritual consciousness? So that means with every act that we do, we dovetail it to Krishna. So we eat in Krishna consciousness by offering up our food. We drink in Krishna consciousness by offering up whatever drink we have. We think of Krishna when we drink our water. We'll learn about this in chapter 7 as well, where we think Krishna is in the taste of water. So doing actions like that is our spiritual consciousness, because we're constantly in union with Krishna. Every action we do, Krishna is there also almost doing it with us. So we've got that union. And by that, we've already renounced this material world. Why? Because with that spiritual consciousness, we want to be in the spiritual world with Krishna. And so we act as almost as if we are by offering the food in the same way that we will when we are in the spiritual world in service of Krishna. So we've renounced this idea of materialism, doing everything for ourselves, to lord it over nature, to lord it over other people, to control things for ourselves. That's what we've given away. And what we've taken is the spiritual consciousness, which is doing things and acting in union with Krishna. So then Krishna elaborates even further. He says, if we engage in righteous work, so if you remember in chapter 3, we looked a little bit, and I think in chapter 4 as well, about the kind of good actions, forbidden actions, and then kind of inaction, but inaction where you are doing a spiritual action. So we engage in, good actions, but then becomes inaction by offering the results to God. And we're keeping alert of the ultimate goal. At the end of this life, I don't want to come back to another material life. I want to go now to my spiritual life. I want to go into the spiritual world. Then our work, everything that we do, becomes worship. So this is a really interesting concept, right? Because usually when we're brought up, we think that worship is just every Sunday I'll go to the temple, maybe ring the bell, go and do kind of bow down, do my matotik, and then that's my worship. And that's, that's part of it as well. But we can actually put worship into our day-to-day life all the time. And why wouldn't we want to do that, if we wanted to live more at peace and more spiritually? So by doing just the simple day-to-day actions like eating, we can turn that eating into worship, which is just a really nice thought for us. So for a lot of us, it's really difficult actually just to sever, just to completely go away. That's why Krishna has provided this way for us to turn our work into worship, because we have to work. I don't think your parents would take it very well if you kind of went up to them today and said, you know how I'm supposed to be going back to school next week? Yeah, like, I'm not doing that. So I'm going to go and I'm just going to sit in the house and renounce school forever. It's not really quite practical for us to do that in this world. So instead, we can by doing this, turning our work into worship, it allows us to live, but also start to look towards a spiritual life while we're living in this material world. So this is why Karma Yoga provides a really nice progressive means of spiritual development. And also, there's one thing I think that Krishna says in one of the last few verses, is that even when you're in the material world, just as if you're a lotus leaf surrounded by water, which is the material world, if you keep your eye on the goal, if you keep doing this karma yoga, you can remain completely dry. Krishna uses the words aloof, which just means kind of just being above the material entanglement. So again, you're not being tugged around by lust, anger, fury, all of those material temporary stages, because you have kind of, your understanding has gone above those and you're acting in a spiritual consciousness. So what lesson can we take from this? Well, like we've just said, all of us have to work. I mean, once you graduate from school, you probably will go on to earn some money, or you might do that if a few of you are 16 plus, you might start your first job. So if you're in that situation, what you might be able to do is, okay, let's say you're doing your job, a portion of your salary, sometimes if you're quite young, maybe you can do a little bit, like 25%, 15%, however much you can in your circumstances, and put that towards some charity and offer it up to the Lord. And then, you've done your duty, you've purified that. But some of you are quite young, so you might not quite be earning yet. Maybe if you're getting pocket money from your parents,
yes,
that you can offer up to the Lord, or it can be like a treat. Like I know when I was younger, I was maybe rewarded with quite a lot of sweet treats. I'm quite a sweet tooth, so offer that up to the Lord as well. So there are lots of different ways to do it. As you get older, that might be your earnings, but now that you're younger, it might be just little treats or pocket money that you get.
very good. It doesn't have to be all of the pocket money. If you get, say, £1 a day, you could put aside 10 pence, put it in a a piggy, what do they call that? Piggy bank?
Yeah.
I don't know if they have piggy banks anymore. And then at the end of the month or at the end of the year, you can count it all up and you can donate it for a very good cause. And you never know, it can amount to a lot of money. So, but a little bit every day you can do, little bit. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we have a few hands up already, ready to read. Ishwari and Kishori, which one of you would like to read? Should we do one then the other?
I think this one may not be such a long. Yeah, it's only that one page.
How about we have Kishori, do you want to read this one page? Can they unmute?
Oh, yeah. Let me unmute. You can unmute, huh?
Yeah, thank you. Text 13. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. Text 14. The embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. Text 15. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. Text 16. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, as the sun lights up everything in the daytime.
Good.
Really nicely read, thank you.
Mm.
And we had something about the city of the 9 gates. We see this like analogy of our body being the city, but and the gates are just like bits where like I think it's like ways into the body, so like the mouth and various other places where you can go into the body. Okay, let's look at a quick summary. So not too many verses here, but very complex verses. Perhaps in reading them there were lots of different words and complex things being told to us there. So let's quickly have an overview. So when we're living in this world, we might easily have this mentality, and it's quite easy for us to have this because Krishna kind of lets us be unless we take the steps towards him, because we have the free will. And so we have this mentality that we are the director, we are the controller, we can do whatever we want. And that's where you get this, the ego coming in, like the I do this, I do that. But Krishna explains that actually there are multiple doers in any activity. So we should acknowledge that and stop kind of almost being greedy for the credit of any actions that we do. So the first doer is us, the individual soul, but the individual soul can only desire. So we can desire some food, we can desire some material wealth, but we can only desire. So how can we even really speak of controlling our activities when, you know, we know how desires can really take us over? We're barely even in really control of what tools are performing those things. And even sometimes our own desires, we're barely in control of those because they just come in and take us over. So then we have the super soul. And the super soul is the one who sanctions the desire. So God sanctions the desire. And this is the part of the super soul that kind of resides in the heart alongside us. And then following that sanction, God then allows the material nature to sort of arrange the circumstances in which that activity needs to be performed. So material nature, like lots of different kind of elements together in where we are in the material world. It's very complex to kind of explain the exact operations that go through, but they make the arrangements, even for us just to, for example, move our arm. The arrangements are made in terms of our joints, in terms of the air, all of that interaction is all made by material nature, not the individual soul. So we really don't have too much power over any activity that we do in the material world at all. But what lesson can we take away from that? Well, if the only kind of part that we have in any activity or action is our desire, we really need to be focusing on who is in control of our desires. Are we in control of our desires, and are we desiring things that we really need? Are we just creating extra karma and extra activities that are tying us to the material world? So how can we apply this practically? Well, I know Nabi probably has told us this lesson before, but I think it's really important to reiterate again. So sometimes you might go into a shop and you might see something really cool, like a game or a magazine or a chocolate bar, and you might think, I really, really want that. And that's where the lust comes in. I think we've talked a little bit about lust before. That's where that comes in. But how can we control this desire? Well, then we might think, okay, do I really need that chocolate bar? But to be fair, the individual soul might not be convinced yet, because it can be quite a formidable force, especially when material nature is also influencing us. So then we might have to ask ourselves again. And we might even have to ask ourselves a third time. But probably by that time you've asked yourself the third time, you'll find that you don't need that desire and that you're able to cut it off and not have it. And not only does that help us control our desires, it actually proves to us that the soul's only function is that it can desire. The activities have to come through after we've really kind of want that desire and decided that it's kind of like our final answer, and then the super soul will sanction it, and then it will go through all the events for us to get it in material nature.
Very well explained, Sanjana. Very well explained. Oh, we won't go through this. It's a little bit complicated, but I'll put it with the notes. But it's very interesting to see how actually only thing that we can do is desire. We are thinking we're acting. I am moving my hand. That's what we're thinking, right? I'm moving my hand. But actually that hand is being moved because of our desire, but it's the material nature. It's the demigods. They have a quick committee meeting. This fellow wants to move his hand. What shall we do? All right. So the demigods get involved and I can move my hand. Literally, that's what happens. So our function is very limited. So just this will be important to understand for later as well. So, okay, let's do the third section. Who'd like to read? Oh, that was Kishori, wasn't it?
That was Kishori, yeah. How many slides have we got?
Oh yes, good question. Good question. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. If we start with Ishwari, and then, yeah, we'll go from there.
Okay. You can unmute.
Kishri would like to read because I read before.
Okay.
Okay.
Text 17. When one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. Text 18. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater outcast. Text 19. Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity
Good.
have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they are already situated in Brahman. Text 20. A person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant, nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the science of God, is already situated in transcendence. Text 21. Such a liberated person is not attracted to sense pleasure, but is always in a trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme.
Great, thank you. And if we have Arjun?
You can unmute.
Thank you. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the forces of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world. One whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inwards, is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in the Supreme, and ultimately he attains the Supreme. Those who are beyond the dualities that arise in crowds, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme.
Brilliant, thank you.
Well read.
Final two texts we have Lokeshwar.
Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. Text 26. Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. Text 27 to 28. Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence. The transcendentalist aiming at liberation becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated.
Very good. Oops. Okay.
Okay. So we've got another summary verses 17 to 28. And here we learn some really important things actually. So we learn about the importance of regarding the spiritual soul in all varieties of life, of kind of recognizing kinship in both a plant that you might see on a walk and a human being, your family, and also a stranger that you might see in the street, also an animal that you might see either in a farm or your pet or wherever, like cat, dog, cow, any animal that you see. And we should give utmost respect to every living being that we come across. Really, really important lesson, and I think something that just will contribute not only to your peace, but for peace to everyone around you as well. And you give that utmost respect to any human being or living being or plant or animal.
And this particular verse, 5:18, is very powerful. The humble sage, by virtue of his true knowledge, he sees with equal vision a gentle Brahmin, a cow, elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. Very powerful verse.
This is because every living entity is of the same spiritual quality, not coffee, even. And this is all part and parcel of Krishna. So we've all got that spirit soul within us. And just because we're in different bodies, these bodies are just our material cases. Now, our different bodies are produced for different reasons. So some of it is influenced by our past actions, so our karma. Some of it is influenced by our desires of the soul. So when we come to the time of death, we learn a little bit more about this in chapter 8. Our kind of desires might influence, and our desires also throughout our life will influence what kind of body we might be into, and also our consciousness. And you will hear this word consciousness repeated quite a lot. We say a lot Krishna consciousness, spiritual consciousness. The logic there is that if you're in Krishna consciousness or spiritual consciousness, you're going to be moving towards a spiritual lifestyle. If not the spiritual world this time, then although that is our aim, you're going to be keeping on that path. So consciousness is really important, really, really powerful. So we should note especially from these chapters, that the spiritualist We should be free from any racism, any nationalism, any ageism, any sexism, and also even speciesism. There's no need to be prejudiced towards anyone, because we are all the same quality of spirit soul. And while different things might have impacted why we're in different situations now, first of all, it's not our place to judge how anyone might have come into anybody. That is between them and Krishna. And second of all, you know, we're all family, and we all come from the spiritual world. We're all here because we need to go back, because we've become a little bit sick, and eventually we will all be back in the spiritual world together as well. So there is really no reason to be prejudiced towards anyone. And so this really important lesson 21, if we have prejudice against anybody due to the color of their skin, then it should be understood that we are in gross ignorance, but we have the opportunity to correct ourselves, because prejudices can come across a lot, just even, you know, any environment that you're brought up in, there's always prejudices in different societies, but we can correct ourselves and kind of unlearn these prejudices by remembering that verse. A true and learned sage, the humble sage, will recognize everybody equally.
Very well put. So in basic summary, in crude terms, if we see somebody and they have a different color of skin, they're white-bodied or they're black-bodied, and we're thinking, oh, I'm better than them, or I have better, you know, like qualities in that person, we should understand we are in ignorance. We are really not seeing everybody equally, and it's not good. Okay, so if you see somebody with a different color of skin, forget about the speciesism and all that at the moment, just different color of skin, we must understand that we are actually all spirit souls, and the Lord, he treats us all equally, whether we have a white body, brown body, black body, it doesn't matter. To the Lord, we are all his children. So we, as Sanjana very beautifully said, we're all part of one big family, God's family. So don't be racist at all, let alone sexist and ageist, etc., etc. But big thing is don't judge anybody on the skin of their, the color of their skin. Very important point. Only one verse here now.
Does anybody want to read this one verse? Should we have Shruti?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare.
Text 29. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor of all well wishes of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. Hare Krishna.
So this is the end of this chapter, Karma Vairagya Yoga. Very nice chapter. So over to you, Sanjana.
Absolutely, yeah. So Nabi Prabhu mentioned at the beginning of our session that we would be receiving the peace formula in this chapter, and this is where it is. It's the final verse, the closing verse, and it's a really nice one to end on. So this verse guides us to live peacefully even during our stay in this really turbulent material world. So what we should understand is we come into this world with nothing. We also leave this world with nothing. Now, the whole time between those two stages, we always claim, this is my house, this is my car, this is my phone, this is my this, that, and the other. And actually for us, it creates this fear, it creates insecurity, and it creates conflict. Why? Because first of all, I'm in fear that I'm always going to lose it, because I have all these objects. I think, what if I lose these objects? What if I can't have them anymore? What if someone gets one that's better than me? And that's where the insecurity comes in as well. Oh, I'm nothing without these objects. I'm nothing without owning this object. And then finally becomes conflict. I'll do anything to get it. I'll even be jealous. I might be motivated to anger. I might be motivated to other sins. For all we know, these things can erupt very quickly. So that's all these things come up when we get attached to objects. But the thing is, change is a constant theme in this world. one day you can have maybe lots of different friends. The next day there might be some friendship drama. I'm sure we've all been to school, so I'm sure we've all experienced that. Sometimes it can be really changing. Our possessions might change. One day we might have lots of possessions, and then we might have to give some of them away. And also our desires change. So when we're younger, when we're really young, we might really like soft foods, for example, or we might like rattle toys. When we go older, your desires are changing. You might want something like a car game or something like that. So things are constantly changing. Our bodies are changing, our environment is changing. Things are, we're not the same person maybe that we were even 10 years ago. Or actually, but for a lot of you who are just 10, that's definitely the case. I'm feeling my age now. But if the person you were 5 years ago, you might have been very different. So to the extent, if we have this sense of detachment, we're not attached to a particular time in our life, or we're not attached to particular objects in this time in our life, or attached to this desire, then we can kind of withstand these changes a bit better, because we're not always either looking back at something and wanting that again, or we're just constantly thinking about holding on to things when we know they're going to disappear, because that's the nature of this world. If we understand that actually it's the Supreme Lord, it's Krishna who owns everything in this world, and we're just simply the caretakers. At a particular point in life, we will have maybe a younger brother to take care of, or a younger sister, or we'll have objects to take care of, or we might have a particular bit of garden to take care of, but it's not always going to be ours, and we certainly don't own it. So if we don't think about constantly owning it or in being invested in it, we can experience some more peace, because we understand that it's only temporary. We're here as a caretaker. So lesson 22 is, when we feel stress about a particular situation, we should try and understand, why am I stressed? Is it because I'm attached too much to this object? I'm attached too much to this particular event? I'm attached too much to this particular person? And it's good to love. Of course, we should be loving and caring. But we should also understand that many things can be temporary, like events, like objects, and we might lose them. So we should instead see it from a caretaker position, and that will help us reduce the situation. So let's give an example for your age. So maybe you have like a sports day coming up, and you're really, really stressed because you're like a really good runner and you need to win the race. And you have to think to yourself, look, this is just my position in this particular year. I'm in charge of the 1500 race. But next year, someone else will be in charge of that. And I might win it or lose it, but it doesn't matter. It's just 1 year. I'll give my all, and I'll be detached. It doesn't matter if I win or lose. I just know that I did my job. So that's how we should see it.
Brilliant explanation. Brilliant explanation. Thank you so much, Sanjana. And this is, again, just a little idea of peace, how it's described in many parts of the Bhagavad Gita. So again, I'll share it. We won't go through it, but it's in the 2nd chapter twice, 4th chapter, 5th chapter twice, 18th chapter twice. So it's quite an important thing. Peace of mind. How can we become stress-free? A lot of diseases that elders suffer is stress. They get high blood pressure, they get diabetes, and it's generally because they're stressed out. So we have to learn to control this stress levels, and this peace formula in the Bhagavad Gita completely does it. And Sanjana has explained it very beautifully. So we've got a few minutes for questions, which is great. I'm going to open up the security, so you can unmute yourselves. Oh, wait, no, let's do it. Let's put your hand up. Put your hands up for any questions. And we've also got a quiz today. So what we'll do is, Pari, if you could share the link or the Kahoot number so that people can log on in time, okay? So Pari, yes, your question, please.
So, Babaji, so this chapter was basically about karma yoga, but in doing everything in Krishna consciousness, right? So
Yeah.
is basically that stuff that we do every single day. For example, we study, and this is to brighten our future, and then get a good job, do everything basically in the material world. So like, if my motivation right now for studying is that I want to have a good future, how do I link that to Krishna consciousness? Because studying is obviously my karma.
Very good.
Very good question, Pari. And I think one that I even had like straight after my GCSEs, I remember having a very similar question, like, because you're often told, you study for this exam, study for that exam, GCSEs will get you to A-levels will get you to uni will get you to a good job, which is, like it's how a lot of us live. And but it's also, like you said, a very material thing to think of, because we might think, oh, well, if I go to uni, then I'll get really good earnings, I'll be really rich, and I can fulfill all my material desires that I've ever wanted. Now, how do you link that to Krishna consciousness? Well, one way in which to do it is kind of in bite-sized ways, and also living in the moment in a way. And by that I mean, you're studying at the moment, but instead of thinking I'm studying and I'm greedy for the results so that I can go to uni, kind of think I'm studying because it's my material duty at the moment to study. I need to study because that's my current work. Now, I'm going to work really hard because I have an obligation to fulfill my duty. That's what we learn in chapter 2, right? Someone who shirks their duty is actually considered quite sinful. You should always be putting the maximum effort into your duty. So that's number one. And then number 2 is, how do I make it spiritual? And that's again where the offering the results comes in. So when you get a good result, and even when you get a bad result, maybe you first think, thank Krishna. Now, for your good result, you offer it up to Krishna. You say, I've done all this hard work, I offer this up to you. Thank you for your guidance and your good wishes, etc. But then you're thinking, why should I even thank Krishna if I get a bad result, for example? Then you go, my dear Lord, thank you for giving me this result. I'm so glad that I have it, because now I know how to improve. So I thank you. Your mercy is very much there. I thank you, Lord, for giving this to me. So the gratitude and offering up the results of your work, that's the ways that you can dovetail it to Krishna.
So, Mataji, like you said, obviously we offer every result to Krishna, right? Like once we're cooking and stuff, obviously the food is offered to him. But in the process, is there a way to link yourself to Krishna consciousness, doing what you're doing? So like the process of doing it, basically.
That's a really good question. Yeah, I think, well, if you can think of, maybe you have like a photo of Krishna in front of you when you're studying, then you can think that, my Lord, my dear Lord, I'm doing this for you. Before you start, you might just do a quick Maha Mantra, think of the Lord. Maybe you might have, I know some people can't work with music, but if it helps, maybe have the Maha Mantra.
Yeah, I do work with a Vishnu Stuti, and I wasn't sure if that's kind of helping, but yeah.
Good.
So
yeah, no, that's really good, and it keeps the Lord in your mind as well. So I think that's really good to even think about how to do it in the process. So a really nice question.
Thank you.
Good, very good question, very intelligent question. Even every minute, every 10 minutes, you could say Krishna. That's it, Krishna. Every 10 minutes, I know somebody who sets an alarm every 10 minutes. And the alarm goes off, Krishna. So we don't forget him. So very, very good question. Very practical. I like that. Thank you. Ria. You can unmute yourself, Ria.
So did God once live, and also what year was it when he lived?
So repeat that question.
Did Krishna once live, and also where is he now?
So yes, come down during the time of the Mahabharata. He came down to this world. He lived for, was it 125 years?
Yep.
And now, as far as I'm aware, Krishna is, well, primarily he lives in the spiritual world, but he's also with us. We come across this in another chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, that you can actually see Krishna everywhere, because he helps this world function. So he says, I'm in the taste of water. I'm wherever you look, you can see Krishna in nature, in the sun rising every day. So Krishna is both kind of in Golok Vrindavan, but also everywhere around us. He's one of those people who can do both of those things, because he's very powerful being.
Very good. Ishwari or Kishori, you can unmute.
Yes, Prabhuji, it's Ishwari, and I'd like to ask a question and I'd like to share something. So my question is that in some stories, there was like a man who named his son Krishna, and that at his time of death, he wasn't even in Krishna consciousness. He said Krishna and he went to God. Is it true that even if you haven't chanted your whole life and you just say Krishna at the end of your life, you'll go to Lord Krishna still?
That's a really good question. I think, is that the story where his son was
Narayan.
Narayan, right? Yeah. But that's a really well remembered, a really nice story. And I think actually it was that he doesn't go straight to Krishna, but I think at that time the Vishnu Dutas say they kind of give him extra time, because he realizes, my God, this whole time I've been rubbishing spiritual consciousness, and now it saved my life, even when arguably I didn't even deserve it. So then he goes and he dedicates his life to Vishnu, Lord Narayan, and then he is gone back to the spiritual world. But in answer to your question, yes, technically, if at the end of your life you are fully and genuinely desire the Lord, and you're in that consciousness of, I want to go back to the spiritual world with the Lord, even if maybe up until 5 minutes before your death there'd be no spiritual consciousness, you can go back. But it's really rare, and the reason why it's really rare is because what are the chances of that actually happening if you haven't spent your whole life practicing for that moment, thinking of Krishna, for you to genuinely have that consciousness and not something else popping in, like I really like sleeping, or I really like eating. That's really simplified, but it's really easy for something else to pop in, because even if just now when you start chanting, it's really hard to fully focus your mind on Krishna and on spiritual consciousness. So the chances of that happening right when you're maybe at your dying moments, where you actually might be quite pressured, frail, you have no idea what moment you might be in when that happens, the chances of it happening are very slim. So it's very rare for that to happen.
Very good. It's said also that many people who have had this near-death experiences, what happens at that time is they go through everything that they've done in their lives flashes in front of them. So if you've thought of God all your life, that's what's going to flash in front of you. If you thought about other things, that's what's going to flash into you. So that's why it's recommended that try to remember God from a young age, like you all are. And I'm so impressed by you all, I have to say, that you are focused so nicely. And nice questions. So Ishwari, did you have something to share?
Yes, so there was like a pujari, like I've heard this, and he was like at a temple, and he was like looking after the temple, and every day he noticed like a really little girl, like 5 or 6, would come to the temple, stand with her hands folded, and then he couldn't hear what she was doing, but it looked like she was saying prayers to the Lord. And one day he asked her, like, what are you doing every morning in front of the Lord? Like, surely you don't know any prayers. And she answered to him, I do my ABCD up to Z, and I give it to the Lord with devotion and hope it will please him.
Beautiful. Wow. That's a really good share. Thank you.
Really lovely.
Manhar. Thank you for that, Ishwari. You can unmute Manhar. Yeah.
So I have a question completely not related to like the Bhagavad Gita. So like, let's say in a sport, like you use certain materials to play it, and let's say in a sport you need something like a leather cricket ball. So like, and that's made of like cowhide. So like, what do you do?
That is a good question. I actually don't, as in, are there regulations in terms of like, so playing the sport, how would that kind of impact you in terms of a karmic value? No problem.
Okay, yeah, it's best to avoid if possible. Now, if you're a cricketer, right, and you are potentially as good as I don't know, Rohit Kohli, is it Rohit Kohli, the captain of India? So
Virat Kohli.
Virat, yes. I knew that. I was just testing if you did. You know, and that's going to be your sort of life ambition, and perhaps something that, because you're God conscious, you're going to offer it to the Lord. In that situation, I would say, yes, it's okay. As long as you understand, look, I am touching leather and I will need to atone for this at some point.
Yeah, so like I was thinking, like, if I can take it, I'll give it to Krishna. Krishna, can you like
remove the sin?
Yes.
Possible.
Yes.
But there's other things like shoes, for example.
Yes, sure.
That's a common thing. Sometimes the belts that we wear around our waist, they can be made of leather, but also you can get alternatives, which are non-leather. So where you can get alternatives, try to find those alternatives as best as you can. Try to avoid, especially Gomata's things, because she's so sacred. Krishna loves her so much. And we're using her things, which has come to us in such a horrible way. That doesn't resonate well, you know?
Yeah. Yes.
Does that make sense, Malhar?
Yes.
Thank you for your question. Tough one. Shruti, you got a question.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. For that question, I forgot the name. I think it was Ishwari told a story about this man who I forgot the name, who chanted Narayan at the end of his life, and he attained salvation. I just want to know, things don't happen without a reason. So who was he in his past life?
Not sure who he was in the past life, but his name is Ajamil.
Ajamil.
Ajamil. And this pastime, which Ishwari mentioned, is described in one of our most holiest scripture, even more important than the Bhagavad Gita, which is the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes. And it's in there, it describes what happened actually in his earlier life. He was a Brahmin boy, very much devoted to his father and mother and to God. But he lost his way. And when he was 88, suddenly the Yamadutas, the servants of death, approached him, and he called out for his little baby son, who he had named by some incredibly great fortune, Narayan. They called out Narayan. He was calling out for his son, not for God. But the servants of Narayan, the Vishnudutas, came and said to the servants of Yamaduta, you can't take him. He's called out the name of God. They argued, no, he's called out his name of the son. Doesn't matter. It's still the name of the God, and God's name is so powerful that you cannot touch him. And Ajamal was watching this conversation take place, and he was thinking, oh my God, I made such a bad mistake in my life. Please save me. And he was saved. He had another 12 years. And as Sanjana very nicely said, he got those extra time, completely devoted himself to God. And in that way, he became fully God conscious. So very, very good story. Thank you for sharing. And what I was thinking, after this Bhagavad Gita session that we finish, after whatever 20 sessions, 21, 22 sessions, we could do stories from this Bhagavad Puran, so that you can really get some practical ideas of how to live in this world. But very nice question, Shruti. Was that okay, Shruti?
Sure, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we got, two more questions, and then we go to the quiz. Arjun?
It's to do with Krishna. So, Krishna's incarnations. Why was Mohini created?
Wow. That's a deep question. Mohini came Again, in the Bhagavatam, this beautiful incarnation has arisen from Lord, but she's a female. Now, it's very, very complex, very unusual. There was a reason behind this. The demigods and the demons, they were working together to get some nectar. They don't hardly work together, but for a change, they worked together. And out of this, what they did was they churned the ocean, and out of the churning came many, many things. Poison came first, which Lord Shiva drank. He's such a kind, he kept it in he's known as Nilakant because he keeps it in his throat. But then the nectar came, and one of the things was a pot of nectar, which can give you immortality. So the demons had that in their possession. So at that time, Mohini came in order to bewilder the demons and take that pot away very cleverly and give all the nectar to the demigods. So she came to basically fool the demons and protect the demigods. That was the reason behind it. And again, this is something that we can take up when we do sessions on stories from the Bhagavatam. But very, very well remembered, Arjun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, yes.
So this so I was talking to my mother about the incarnations of Krishna because I like to listen about Krishna, about old stories.
Hmm.
And my mother told me that Krishna was once incarnated as a pig.
He came as Varaha. He's a transcendental pig, okay? He's not a pig like we know in this material world. He comes as human. He comes as Mach, which is a fish. Kach, a pig. Mach Kach, Varaha. Mach Kach. So Kach is tortoise. Varaha is a pig or boar, but he's a transcendental. He's not got the nature of a pig. Yeah, his nature is still supreme. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
He evolves through all of the different species. He comes in many different ways. He's so kind. He'll show us all his different forms, and they're all transcendental. One God, many forms. Okay. Okay, so let's go to has everybody got the Kahoot number?
Prabhuji.
Everybody has? Yes, very good. And Pari, would you like to share your screen? Oh, let me allow you to. You can share your screen, huh? And everybody please join. Just a quick few announcements before we go to this. Tomorrow is a really important day. It's Sri Krishna Janmashtami, one of the most important days of the year, the most auspicious day. And I wanted to invite you all, whoever is in the area of Croydon, we're going to have a function in Coulsdon. So please come, Coulsdon Community Center. I will put this on the Bhakti Gyan course group, so your parents will have the details. Please try to make it there. You will enjoy it, and we will keep a very safe environment. We'll try to, so that everybody is protected somewhat. So that's going to take place from 12 o'clock tomorrow till 9 o'clock in the evening. And it's a very auspicious day, the birthday of Lord Krishna. Okay, so has everybody joined? Anybody missing? Oh, and Pari, yes, let me unmute you. You can ask the question. You can start the quiz, huh?
Thank you, Babaji. I think everyone's joined because, yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well done. And I have to say, we gave Pari 2 hours notice to produce this quiz, and she did amazing. Thank you very much, Pari.
No problem, Babaji. So it's on chapter 4. Is known as dash Jnana, Shruti, Bhakti, or Sanatana Dharma. Yeah, so Shruti was the correct answer.
Good.
Who was the first being to receive the imperishable science of yoga from the Supreme Personality? So basically, who was the first to receive the teachings from the Bhagavad Gita? Was it Manu, Ikshvaku, Arjuna, or the sun god Vivaswan? Yeah, so it was
Nice.
Vivaswan. We then passed it down. The material creation is essentially a university where we discover dash, our relationship with God, how to make our future lives better, how to be unattached, or our best material possessions. Yeah, so it's basically to discover our relationship with the Lord. True or false? Praying to demigods provides success. However, praying to Lord Krishna provides us with whatever is. And it's true. All right, another true or false. The 4 divisions of mankind are created by the Lord, so it's discriminate. Yeah, well, to the one person who selected true, it's definitely to discriminate.
I probably didn't understand the question, but it's
Yeah.
good question actually.
Which one of the karmas should we try to apply in our lives? Is it karma, akarma, vikarma, or sakarma?
Good question.
It's one that we have to apply spiritually, so it's definitely akarma.
Good.
If we follow the principles of akarma, we will not be reincarnated. True or false? And it's indeed true. If you won't have a reaction, then you're going to be unattached. Therefore, you will achieve liberation. Chapter 4 is yoga. Bhakti yoga, Sankhya yoga, Karma yoga, or Jnana yoga.
Very good.
Now, if we remember in the past, we've already done Sankhya yoga and Karma yoga. Yeah, so it's Jnana yoga. Why was the chain of succession or the science of yoga spoken again to Arjuna in the battlefield? Was it because everyone had forgotten it? Because Arjuna was special, to make everyone more religious, or for the re-establishment of dharma?
Tricky one.
Yeah, wow, well done. Most of got this correct.
Oh, well done. Yeah, 12 got it right. That was really good.
That was supposed to be one of the hard questions. So.
Yeah, very good. Brilliant.
The impact of transcendental knowledge is self-realization. Even a sinner can become closer to God. Doubts end through divine knowledge, or immortality. Now, for this, there's 3 correct answers. It's a multi-choice question.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. 12 people got it right. That's fantastic. Amazing.
Actually, all of them got it right because no one selected immortality.
Oh, yeah. Good.
You were right. Well done, guys. Last one. Another double points question. Who are other examples we see that are able to humbly submit? Shri Krishna, Arjuna, Dhritarashtra, or all of the above?
Good.
So Dhritarashtra surprisingly submit to Guru.
He did, because he talked to Vidur, isn't it? He was, yeah.
Yeah, it was Sanjaya.
Oh,
So
Sanjay.
Prathamesh and Shruti Laya. Well done, guys.
Jai Shruti, well done again. Amazing.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Very good. Very good. Okay, so thank you so much, everybody. I'll unmute. You can unmute yourselves and we can say goodbye. We'll see everybody next Sunday. Chapter 6. We might have to do it over 2 weeks because it's very long. So thank you so much, everybody.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Bye.
Hare Krishna, bye.
Bye.
Hare Krishna, Sanjana, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey, your test tomorrow?
Oh, yeah, you remembered.
Yeah, and I wish you the best. What time is it?
It's at like 8 a.m. So
Oh wow! I'll give you. I'll remember you at that time.
thank you.
We'll be in the center actually at that time, so that's good. We'll remember you at that time. Hopefully, it'll go well. Actually, a fantastic time because there will be hardly any traffic.
Yeah, I know. Many people are saying that.
Yeah, so that saves a lot of grief.
Yeah.
You got
Good luck on
maniacs.
your test. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Ishwari.
Bye.
You won't. You might see a maniac like me. No, actually, I won't be on the road. I'll be inside the hall at that time. But good. And then are you going tomorrow?
I'm going back tomorrow. Yeah. Well,
So you won't be able to come, huh?
yeah, I know. But we were thinking of the Lord. I'm just grateful that Krishna actually rearranged it to be on such an auspicious day.
Yeah, it's a good idea. What you could do if you have time, just pop in, have darshan, and then go.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do. We'll see.
Yeah. You can even tell your instructor, I need to go to this. No, I mean, if you have any moment, just come, have darshan, swing Gopal, ask him, please, let me drive for you in the future. And then.
Yeah, no, I mean, I leave here at 7 a.m. So, because I do a bit of practice beforehand. I'm going to Morden. So.
Oh, yeah. Yes. That's where the test center is, isn't it?
Yeah. But no, I appreciated this session today as well because I was feeling quite nervous, and actually the session was really like calming my nerves and just don't think about success or failure. Just do it.
And your delivery was fantastic. So well done, really good. All right, you do some extra whatever you need to. Thank you so much. Huh? Really good. Thank you, Pari. Fantastic.
I had to tell you about something.
Go on.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I went to the Bhakti Vedanta Manor in Bangalore, and my dad actually saw Yogeshwar Prabhu. And he told me a lot about you.
Yeah, he's a good boy.
He's from ISKCON, and he was telling us how you started a lot of councils and stuff in South London, and I think a month there as well.
Yeah.
And it was so refreshing because I didn't think, he would I didn't think he would know about you that much.
No,
and
he's a good boy.
He was telling us so much about you. But yeah, we bought a lot of, dresses for Thakurji from there.
Nice.
Yeah, really beautiful ones.
And you can't come tomorrow, isn't it? Because it's too far.
So my dad said he's definitely going to think about it because.
Oh, great.
We're keeping vrat tomorrow. we're keeping.
Nice. Well done. And I tell you what, if you come, I've got a special gift for you. So. Oh
gosh, is that a motivation for coming, Prabhuji?
You have to now bribe your dad.
I tell him it's a gift for him, and then you.
I'll have a gift for you anyway, but if you come tomorrow, you get a special gift. So.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. It's really not needed, but thank you anyway.
No, thank you so much. Today you were so good. So well done. Huh?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Sanjana. Thank you, Sunu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, I should have stopped the recording.